this man, he got some good news for you. Hey, man, now listen. Hey, everybody, gather near. The doctor's in the house, so lend him your ear. The things he can say might even make your day. He might even help your pain go away. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in the house, and welcome to another episode of Dr. Ron, unfiltered, uncensored. And I'm your host, Dr. Ron. And like last week, we talked about farm fish. We're going to do a little diving today also. And we're going to try and get into a topic that affects all of us, whether we realize it or not. And there's a fascinating intersection between microplastics and our precious microbiome. And what have I been saying about our microbiome? It is necessary for us to have that superior interior. So microplastics, they're tiny, insidious particles. They have permeated every corner of our lives, the packaging of our food to the clothes we wear. They're all over. But did you know that these minuscule plastic fragments can wreak havoc on our delicate, very delicate microbiome? The microbiome. It's a wondrous world within us, ladies and gentlemen. It's teeming with trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms that call our bodies their home. There's a city of microscopic life living within us, and they're working tirelessly to keep us healthy. But what happens when microplastics enter this intricate ecosystem? Well, studies are showing that microplastics can indeed alter the delicate balance of our microbiome. They have the potential to disrupt the harmony in our bodies, and that will lead to just many, many, many health issues, and some of which I'm sure you're not aware of. Our immunity, our natural God-given immunity relies heavily on a healthy microbiome. And if it's compromised, we will be more vulnerable to diseases and infections. Where do these microplastics come from, you might ask? Well, everywhere. They're in our oceans, rivers, lakes, contaminating our water supplies. They found our way into the air we breathe, settling on the surfaces around us. And as we started to talk about last week, they have even made it into our food chain, ending up on our plates and into our bodies. Plastic invaders. They're not just floating around harmlessly, but they're making their ways into our bodies and then into our organs. They've been detected in our gut, liver, lungs, and I've just read recently, even in the brain. They've managed to cross that blood-brain barrier. They are unwelcome guests, ladies and gentlemen, but fear not, because, we have our wellness warriors, and knowledge is power, and we'll try and take some steps to protect our microbiome and boost our immunity. So you have to do your part, as all wellness warriors do. Keep educated, make conscious choices, minimize your exposure to these microplastics. Okay? So we may not get through it all today, but we'll explore some practical strategies to reduce our microplastic intake and see what research is out there as we navigate this field. So I want to welcome you And I want to thank all the great comments about our farmed fish episode. I want to thank especially my good friend Nino for his insight into this situation. I mean, just interesting as I was preparing for this. How many of you use plastic straws? A lot of us, right? You have any idea how many straws are used a year? Americans use 500 million straws a day. And I'm not talking about the ones that come taped to juice bottles and so forth. 500 million straws a day. 175 billion a year. That's with a B. You can wrap those straws around the earth 2.5 times a day. So we don't even think about it. We talk about plastic, right? But it's just one little change in our habits. Get rid of some straws. So that's what kind of problem we're dealing with. That slice of pizza you're eating, it can come with an invisible side of plastic. Tiny plastic fragments, smaller than a grain of rice. They're in our food supply, our water supply, and then in our bodies. The reason I'm bringing this up is because we've talked about inflammation, and inflammation is the root cause of most chronic diseases. And microplastics can cause inflammation. That's why it's important to try and eliminate them as we try and eliminate the electromagnetic fields, which are inflammatory. And you see the large plastic shopping bags, and they degrade eventually into microplastics over time. The sun, the water break them down. Some of them, and they evade waste management when they get to that microscopic size. So everyday products like cosmetics, synthetic fabrics, single-use plastic bags also shed plastic particles. And because they're so small, they travel in the water, in the air, and in the food chain. And there are many, many studies going on right now investigating microplastics' effect on our health. 93% of tested bottled waters, 93% contain microplastics. That was published in Frontiers in Chemistry. So it's far-reaching. I would almost say it's sad that it's probably unavoidable to get some microplastics. They're everywhere. According to Epic Times, they're even found in the snow on top of Mount Everest. And they're found in placentas with a developing fetus. In the past year, researchers tested 22 people and found that most had detectable microplastics in their blood. And researchers linking plastic chemicals like the phthalates and the bisphenols to conditions like obesity, and diabetes, inflammation, and hormone disruption. These tiny particles contain chemicals like flame retardants, plasticizers, to disrupt our hormones and to cause chronic inflammation. And now, ladies and gentlemen, they are lodging in our organs. They can infiltrate our cells and our tissues. And sorry to say, our brain is battling these. It's probably our most protected organ, but because it's so vital. Now, researchers gave mice drinking water that contained microplastics. These plastics got into the mice's brain within just 2 hours. Now, the brain enveloped them in cholesterol molecules on the surface, and that's how they could cross the blood-brain barrier. That's alarming. Within 2 hours, they could end up in your brain. We have enough problem with dementias and Parkinsonism and other neurodegenerative diseases. So we have to try and decrease these microplastics in our lives. And we haven't even started talking about our microbiome, have we? And what started this was when I was doing research for last week's podcast. When we found out that farm fish eat microplastics. We eat the fish, and so we're eating them too. That's pretty troubling because, as I said, farm fish are directly being fed plastics. And gets to us and into our organs. There's a study that shows that the average adult consumes approximately 2,000 microplastics a year just through salt, just through the salt you use. So that's why I say it's pretty hard. It's an all-time job to try and avoid it. And what is disturbing to me is because our immunity is what keeps us healthy, and most of it is in our gut. Our gut is inhabited by trillions and trillions of bacteria. They say that less than half of our cells of the human body are actually belong to the body itself. The rest are microbiome. What do these microbes do? They're great for our immunity. They help harvest energy from the food we eat. They provide nutrients. They make that gut barrier strong. They protect us from bad bacteria and microbes. They produce bile acids. They can degrade toxin and cancer-causing chemicals, and they're essential for the normal functioning of our organs, especially our brain. So once this gets imbalanced from chemicals and now microplastics, we are more susceptible to infection, immune disorders, and inflammation. So improving it might be an approach to treat a number of these diseases. So without going into the different species, just think of it in general terms. Okay, as we age, we get more and more diverse bacteria, and they have done studies. I don't have them in front of me, but children that are born through vaginal births that are exposed to the mother's bacteria through the vaginal canal and exposed to the bacteria on the mother's skin as they breastfeed are a lot more healthier. So it starts at birth. The gut is colonized with these bacteria, these microbes, this microbiome. So it's colonized both from the mother and from the environment. And by the time we reach a year of age, we have our own bacteria profile. Just think of that. And of course, it's going to change somewhat because it has something to do with hormones as we go through puberty. The gut microbe also changes. And it changes again when we hit that magic age of 65. But It's exciting when you think about it to have a superior interior, how our health is influenced. And gut bacteria do produce vitamins. Some of them we can't produce ourselves, like vitamin B12. And there's others, the B3 and B5, etc. But they produce bacteria, they produce vitamins. They produce short chain fatty acids, which are necessary for the microbiome. They are very, very important, especially if you take a probiotic. And we have this gut-brain connection, and the microbiome play a role in that. That's why they say the microbiome in our gut can influence our cognitive function and our behavior. And it's a two-way street between the brain and the gut. It's called the gut-brain axis. And it goes along the vagus nerve, which goes from our gut to our brain. In fact, they have cut that vagus nerve and exposed animals to different toxins. They did not get Parkinson's disease. When the vagus nerve was intact, they got Parkinson's-like disease. Because these microbes have something to do with serotonin, acetylcholine, dopamine, which is deficient in Parkinson's disease. So, again, started out with fish eating microplastics influencing our microbiome and then causing disease of various organs. Some people say I have a gut feeling. Well, it might be true because when our microbiome is disturbed by whatever cause, it can decrease our mental well-being. Because a lot of gut inflammatory diseases are associated with depression and anxiety. So, do you see where I'm going with this, though? How important the microbiome is? If you use too much antibiotics, if they give too much antibiotics to mice, they don't make new nerve cells in the brain. So you see how important it is not to overuse antibiotics? How not to eat a standard American diet, the SAD diet, with lots of unsaturated fats and sugars. Changes our gut bacteria, changes our mood, can change the way we think. And it may even make us more susceptible to stress and post-traumatic stress disorders by having a gut bacteria that's not optimal. And of course, if we don't have good bacteria in our gut, we don't have a strong intestinal barrier. So toxins can get into our system. They say people that are overweight have a lower gut microbial diversity. Yeah, so maybe that's another area that needs study rather than taking a $1,000 a month shot that they're advertising. Just taking some pre and post probiotics. So they are associated with a lot of diseases. Some of them are just showing up in laboratory testing. But one thing that's not showing, that is true, is gut bacteria protect us from infections and other harmful microbes. And what's important for me, since I've been talking about it for years, is the gut bacteria suppress inflammation. And inflammation is the root cause of most chronic diseases. And I could go on and on and on about how important it is, but just you'll do some research and you'll see that gut bacteria is associated with MS, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis. The strength of your bones may be influenced by your gut microbe. The list goes on and on and on. So it affects our brain, may contribute to Parkinson's disease, and may contribute to dementia. So is that enough reason just there to cut down your microplastics and try and eat a cleaner diet so the chemicals don't kill off our much needed bacteria in our gut? And if that doesn't get you, people that have they look good for their age, they have a great microbiome. A great microbiome. So because of some difficulties on my end, not your end, ladies and gentlemen, we just I'm going to just give you a few more ideas, and then we'll talk more about how to supplement and the microbiome, especially with my favorite supplement, which is Megaspore, because it's made up of not the bacteria themselves, but spores which are encased and can't be destroyed by the stomach acids and acid and the chemicals of the upper intestine and survive to the large intestine, where they can not only start producing, but they help the normal bacteria in our intestines flourish. In the meantime, try and use stainless steel water bottles as a replacement for plastic. Don't use the plastic bags at the grocery store. Either try to bring canvas or cotton bags, with the caveat, though, of cleaning them out. You keep putting stuff in these canvas bags, you throw them in the trunk of your car. They need to be cleaned out because they can harbor bacteria. And instead of grabbing our coffee in a paper cup, either bring your own or use a reusable mug. Try and find organically raised meat whenever possible, and free fish, not farm fish, so we can limit our exposure to toxins, which will affect our microbiome, affect our health, even our longevity. I think just some points that I was going to talk on a little bit more is the neurotoxicity of pesticides, but you sort of can figure that out on your own. But this microbiome and your immunity are super, super important. Be careful of how many drugs you take. Ask your physician if any of your drugs can be decreased, because half of all commonly used drugs seriously affect our gut microbiome. Not good. And sometimes we're giving too many drugs because some drugs are given to counteract the effects of prior drugs. So it's important that you know the side effects before you take a new drug. It can affect your microbiome. And not to belabor another point, but exercise can affect your microbiome favorably. It can help them to thrive. And there's another axis. We have the gut-brain axis, but we also have a gut-lung axis. And that has to do with the microbiome of our oral cavity. They go hand in hand. So if you use too much toxic mouthwashes, and maybe I should talk about that again. I did it a few months ago. You just wipe out all the good bacteria in your mouth, and that can affect your lung function. Something we don't think about, just like we didn't think about washing our shower heads, with vinegar. Okay, because they can harbor mycoplasma that can cause pneumonia, because it's nice and damp and warm in that shower head. So we want to support our microbiome. We don't want to destroy it. We want to watch the electromagnetic fields, which seem to be ubiquitous anymore. They affect us all. Remember, they affect our microbiome and they are inflammatory. Okay. Diet, stress, exercise, restorative sleep, medications, smoking, all have a deleterious effect. So that with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry I have to cut a little short today, but we'll get more into this next week. And I see you have a few people signing in here, and I'll get to you next week if you want to ask any questions. We'll be back next Monday. And remember, I'm on all channels, even Rumble and BitChute, and we can catch you there. But I do thank you for listening. And remember, one thing we want you to do is...
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
So we want you to be able to handle the truth by being a wellness warrior, and we'll see you next week.
Hey everybody, Dr. Ron's finished for today. I hope you got some good wisdom for what the man had to say. If it's all about good health, he's the man you got to see. He has a lot more answers for you. So tune in next week when the doctor is in the house. Or when the doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. And let the doctor know what's bothering you. I'm sure he can tell you just what to do. The doctor is in the house. The doctor is in the house. Let the doctor know what's bothering you. When the doctor is in the house. Say